If finding the perfect concealer is like this never-ending search, then this video is for you. Today we're going to walk through just a few of my favorite concealers for mature skin, and I've really curated a list that hits all different price points, different coverages, and different finishes. So whether you're looking for a high-end full coverage matte concealer or you might be looking for a sheer radiant drugstore option, I've got you covered. Let's go. Okay, first we're gonna start in the lighter coverage category. So this was a bit difficult for me because honestly, you guys, this is not an exhaustive list. I have many concealers that I love that I've talked about on my channel over the last 10 years that I have been doing this YouTube channel. But I kind of curated it down to like my current favorites or like my all-time favorites. So concealers that I have loved for many years that still make it into my rotation, or concealers that I have just more recently discovered that I can't put down. So keep in mind, while these are great options, there are many more. So I will link a few other concealer videos down below if you want to watch those next. But let's get started with the first concealer we're going to discuss today, and that is the Saie Beauty Slip Tint Radiant Concealer. Now this concealer is a newer concealer. I want to say it launched this year, and I immediately fell in love with this concealer when it launched. So this checks all the boxes for a lightweight, light coverage, natural concealer. The texture is very lightweight. It's very easy to blend into the skin because it is so lightweight, super blendable. It offers a sheer to light coverage. You can build it up slightly and get a little bit more coverage, but if you're looking for a full coverage concealer, this is not the one for you. It does leave a radiant finish on the skin. It's a radiance, but it's not creamy. It like sets and stays in place, but you still get this glow from underneath the eye. Sometimes when I think of radiant finish products, whether it's a concealer or a foundation, I think of a texture that's creamy that might be more prone to settling in fine lines or moving or migrating. This one is not the case. This stays in place like any concealer would, but it gives a radiant, slight, subtle glow under the eye. It reflects light, which can be very forgiving for areas that might have texture under the eyes, fine lines, wrinkles, which might be very forgiving when you have fine lines or texture under the eyes. When you reflect light, it almost gives a subtle kind of soft focus effect. This concealer is beautiful. It's also really nice for the face. Typically when I'm looking for a concealer for the face, I like to go with something lighter coverage and lighter weight because I don't want to add anything on top of my foundation that's just going to magnify texture. I really love this product. I would recommend setting it with a little bit of loose light powder. One of my favorite powders to set under the eye is the Givenchy Prisma Libre powder. This one is just very light, very finely milled. This is going to set and lock in your concealer, and that's going to be the case with every concealer that I mentioned today. So I'm not going to mention this specifically as we go along, but just know with every concealer I recommend setting just so that you don't have to worry about it creasing or moving, because unfortunately most concealers to some degree will settle in fine lines. It's just how it goes. The ways you can avoid that is to not apply too much of the product and to apply a little setting powder on top. But I absolutely love this product. Let's move on to a drugstore option if you're looking for light sheer coverage. Actually, before we move on, guys, I want to touch on the fact that this concealer is long wearing. It wears for up to 12 hours and it's hydrating as well. Next up, we have the iconic Maybelline Instant Age Rewind Concealer. Now, I've been using this concealer, I think since the start of my YouTube channel. I'm gonna find a video where I talked about this like years and years ago. This concealer is one of my favorite from the drugstore when you're looking for a lightweight, light coverage option. This one is also buildable, but really don't reach for this concealer if you're looking for full coverage because there are so many other better options. This can also be used on the face to highlight or to contour if you choose a lighter or a darker shade. It's hydrating, it blends beautifully on the skin. This has very minimal creasing, again for that extra insurance. Set it with powder to lock it in to avoid creasing. Also avoid applying too much. That's really the best way to ensure that you're not going to have creasing or settling into fine lines or wrinkles with any of the concealers that you use. But this is a fantastic option. My guess is that most of you at some point have tried this concealer because it is such a iconic concealer that's been around forever. It has a sponge tip applicator. Now, I will apply it with that, but then I'll go back and blend it with a concealer brush just to get the best application. You can't go wrong with this one. It's super hydrating and really great for dry or mature skin. By the way, you guys, I'm going to link and tag all of these products so you can easily shop them, and I'm going to include my particular shades that I wear in the description box below. So if we have similar tones and you usually find that my shades will work for you, you can find the shades that I use down below. Okay, let's jump to the other side of the spectrum. Let's talk about full coverage, long wearing concealers. And I had a few more favorites in this category, so I definitely have some favorites that aren't going to be mentioned in this video. Again, I wanted to narrow it down so I didn't overwhelm you guys with too many options. If I've shared other concealers in other videos that have been favorites, you can trust that those are still recommendations that I would stand by. These are kind of just more recent. So starting with the Natasha Denona High Glam Concealer. This is a newer concealer. I think this launched within the last 12 months, and I immediately fell in love with this concealer just as I did with the Saie, but honestly, they couldn't be more different. This concealer is full coverage. It's going to conceal and hide everything. It's a creamy consistency, it is hydrating, and it is also very long wearing. I am the shade P3 in this, and it's like the perfect shade. It conceals and it color corrects and cancels out. When you are working with a full coverage concealer, my recommendation is always to start with less product than you think you might need, and then go in and build and add more if you find that you need it. It is very easy to over apply a full coverage concealer, and while it might look okay when you first apply it, chances are when you continue to go about your day and the makeup starts to wear and break down, it's just going to look really heavy. So you are more likely to need about half as much product with a full coverage concealer than you would with a lighter weight concealer. A lighter weight, more natural concealer is going to be more forgiving. Let's just say that. So make sure you don't use too much of this. The finish on this is natural, which means it's not going to be radiant like the Saie Beauty is. It's not going to look matte either, like let's say something like the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer is. It's just going to look natural. It's just going to look like natural skin. It's also hydrating, and as I mentioned before, it's very long wearing. When it comes to a drugstore counterpart to a full coverage, long wearing concealer, this one was just an immediate go-to for me. I didn't have to struggle with this one too much. I knew that this was the concealer I wanted to feature in this video. This is the L'Oreal Infallible Full Wear Concealer, and this is a fantastic concealer for being a full coverage, long wearing option. What I love about this is it's hydrating and it stays in place and it's very long wearing, but it doesn't look matte or heavy like some other concealers can look when you find a full coverage long wearing concealer. Sometimes it's difficult to find one that looks natural. This one does not let you down. It is so great. It's also super blendable, very easy to blend into the skin. It comes in a great shade range. I have a few that I use. This particular shade that I use today that works really well is the shade 350 Bisque. This is also waterproof, so it has kind of a natural matte finish and it's waterproof, super long wearing. And just as I mentioned for the Natasha Denona, a little bit of this goes a long way. So start out light and then build up if you need more, but this is absolutely probably my top pick for a drugstore full coverage, long wearing concealer. So we just have two more concealers to share. I could not do a video without including this concealer because I had a deep love affair with this concealer when it launched a few years ago. This is the Bobbi Brown Skin Full Cover Concealer. This is a full coverage concealer, you guys. It is right in line with the Natasha Denona High Glam in terms of coverage. This is a very creamy consistency. It blends out beautifully. It's hydrating under the eye. A little bit of this goes a long way. In fact, I would say of the two, of this or the Natasha Denona, I would actually say this one is one that you have to be even more conservative with. It's just, you just don't need much at all. It is full coverage, but it looks really natural and hydrating under the eyes. So my only word of caution would be just not to apply too much, but I absolutely love this for high glam days. When I have special events or I'm doing a photo shoot, this is always one that I pack with me because it just looks and performs so beautifully. I'm the shade beige in this, and I love this color because it conceals, but it's also got a little bit of a peach to it, so it really cancels out and brightens up under the eye. All right, and last but certainly not least, because I highly recommend recommend this concealer to all. It is beautiful. It performs it's one of my top concealers, I'd say. Truly, it's so beautiful, regardless of price point. And this one comes at a good price point. It's not drugstore, but it's not high-end either. It's ColourPop, so you can pick it up at Target or Ulta. This is the Pretty Fresh Hyaluronic Creamy Concealer. And what I love about this is just how blendable it is. You just put this on the skin, press a little bit with either your finger or a brush, and it just disappears into the skin. It has hyaluronic acid, and I think it has like coconut water. I wrote it down here. It has coconut water, so it's very hydrating underneath the eyes. It's very creamy. It also has full coverage, but a very natural finish. It is absolutely beautiful. And the foundation, the corresponding foundation, it's called the Pretty Fresh Foundation, absolutely beautiful too. So if you're looking for a good, affordable foundation and concealer combo, those two you can't go wrong with. And in this, I am the shade Medium 85 in, and it's a really just perfect shade for me. It's like almost the exact shade of my skin tone. It doesn't necessarily brighten under the eyes, but of course, because it conceals, it just looks very, very flawless, very, very natural. This is also a great one that you could apply on the skin to cover any blemishes or imperfections on the skin, because it's just gonna blend in. In fact, I would say on days that you maybe don't wanna wear a foundation and you just wanna wear maybe like a tinted SPF, but you want coverage under the eyes and maybe you wanna spot conceal, this would be a really great product to wear with a tinted SPF or a tinted moisturizer or something with a little bit of a natural sheer coverage. This will just give you that extra coverage, but it'll blend and play really nicely with more sheer products. I love this. I love it, love it, love it. Like 5 stars. This is so good. So that wraps up today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure and check out this video next, where I recommend other products that work great for mature skin. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.